headshots in the final 24 seconds of either the fourth quarter or the overtime period. How important, when you're looking for a clutch go-to player in those kind of final stretches, can a guy like that be?
Oh, that's huge. I mean, you're going to have to make some shots. Look, you don't get to the conference finals and play a poor team. That team has won 2 series, and they're going to, come in there, and you have to have guys that can finish. I mean, Butler's one of those guys that under pressure, beautiful passer. I love that little action, the give and go. But what he can do is that under pressure, he can get his own shot off. And he made that tough 3 in the corner. He had a hard driving layup in there late in the games and stuff. So, they have a guy that can go and get you baskets, and you have to have that. But the thing I liked about them is the ball swung around. Jay Crowder's getting shots. Hero's getting shots. Everybody's getting shots on that team, not just Jimmy Butler. But they do have a closer. And when you have a closer, man, you have a lot of confidence.
And it was Goran Dragic as well. You mentioned the other guys,
yes.
But he had a postseason high 29 points in Game 1. What made him so effective?
How did I forget Goran Dragic? Thank you, Kristen, for reminding me.
He does it so quietly.
He was great.
Yeah.
I coached Gordon. Goran in Houston, and what a great young man he is. I mean, this guy plays hard all the time, but what he was doing, he was taking the fight to the Celtics. He was coming off pick and roll, going downhill, weaving through, getting out in the break. He's got little float game. He's left-handed, and those left-handed guys are always crafty, and he gets in the paint, but he just put pressure on them all the time. Had a great game, and I thought he was the catalyst for that team winning that. And what the Heat did is they hung around versus the Celtics, and eventually just hanging around, got into overtime, and finally took control of the game. But they hung around a lot because of Goran Dragic. But again, everybody had a big part to play. Crowder, Hero, everybody played well for that team.
And it wasn't just offensively, but defensively as well, because it was Bam Adebayo's block that essentially sealed the game. For as much confidence as it takes for Jason Tatum to go up and try and throw it down to win the game, it takes, I would imagine, that same level of confidence to go up and try and block it, right?
Yeah, you got to attack the shooter. I mean, right now, Bam comes over. He gets look at the big step he has. He's in help side, but he comes over, and I mean, he comes over from outside of the paint on the left side to block that shot. And but you got to beat that force, because I'll tell you right now, Tatum was going up to throw that down. And, I've blocked a few dunks in my days, and I tell you what, there's a lot of pressure. His hand was damn near in the rim. I mean, his wrist got bent down, and there's a lot, you go up, and you've got to go up with force. So if you're standing there and don't have momentum taking you to the play, you get dunked on. But he had his momentum. What a beautiful time to block. And, I give him a lot of courage. There's a lot of guys that wouldn't have done that, would have saw Tatum hit the launching pad and would just sit up. I mean, I'm not going to get posterized. At that point, and that's what I'll always tell people, is that with championship teams, they're not worried about that stuff, posterizing this. They're like, man, I got to get a stop. And I love that kid. He's a fearless competitor, always protecting the rim, which brings me one thing I say really quickly about the Celtics. They got to drive more. They got to attack Bam, because Bam's going to help all the time, and then find people, because he's constantly in that paint, protecting that paint, and they never collapse the Heat. And they were almost like they were afraid of Bam in there protecting the rim. You got to challenge those big shot blockers.
Let's talk a little bit more about the Celtics, because they did have a 12-point lead going into the fourth quarter. Could you break down some of what you saw for me? Well, break down in those late game stretches?
Yeah, I just thought that Boston got very passive. Their offense just almost stayed completely on the perimeter. And, if you see here right now, you're coming off, you got everybody, you have good spacing, but now you got to attack. I mean, at a certain point, the ball never gets past the three-point line on that thing. At that point, someone's got to break the seam. And again, you're going to see nice spacing. That ball has got to get into the paint. And you've got to attack all, there. And you're going to see again here, as the ball comes around and the attack, long jump shot, ball never got inside the three-point line. And you've got to be able to attack. Like I say, watch the Heat's defense, which is very good. They're all matched up, but every man is just keeping his man in front of him. And there's really no breakdowns, no room to get in. But someone's got to beat their man off the dribble. And I think there was just way too much stagnant dribbling on top, which you see there, and just kind of getting in there a turnover. And when you do break down the defenses, you're going to see them do it here in the play. You've got to really attack. So again, ball's coming out. You get over here. Look at this. Now you got to make the right plays. They collapse. They do a good job of collapsing, but you got to force that. You can't allow one guy to guard his man head up. Everybody else is in help position. Everybody's just big and showing their arms and closing down space. But they've got to break people down and draw and kick. And as I said earlier, you've got to attack Bam, because that brings in Williams and Tice. Because when the big guy comes over to shot block, as Bam will, you got to drop that off to Tice or Williams, or you make somebody cover down. So when the cover down comes from either the weak side corner or the slot, and that's a long recovery. The Celtics did not get good shots coming down the stretch. And finally, I thought Smart played so well early. Brown is their best guy off the dribble, and they barely touched the ball in the last 5 minutes of the game. They've got to be better offensively, move the ball better, and get other people involved in it.
Well, our Jim Jackson is joining us now. Jimmy, I'm assuming you can hear me now? Yes? All good? Have we worked?
I got you.
Okay, everything technically out on your end. You and I have talked so often, Jimmy, about Kemba Walker's importance to this team. He had 19 points on 19 field goal attempts in Game 1. How much of this team's success in this series do you see rising and falling on his efficiency?
Well, I mean, it's important because Kemba, not just from scoring, but being aggressive, making plays. When he's making shots now, and Kevin, to tell you this, now the defense really has to step up, in particular on the pick and roll and guard him, and that's when he can get downhill and make plays. When he's struggling with his shots, now you don't have to help as much, especially on his drive or on his pull-up. He's always dangerous, okay, in regards to what he can do, because he made some big shots down the line of the game. But when he's not as consistent, the defense now can spread out a little bit more and cover the shooters on the perimeter. He said it himself. He said, listen, I'm not playing well. Well, when you're not playing well, that means you're not scoring. That means you're not shooting well. I think for Kemba to be really effective, if the ball doesn't go on the rim from the perimeter, one, figure out ways to get out in transition, get some layup. Second, get to the free throw line. Third, if you're struggling from making shots, make plays. Utilize the pick and roll. Get downhill. Draw the defense. Now, instead of getting 7 or 8 assists, maybe get 10, 12, 13, 14 assists. That makes up for the lack of scoring until you can find your rhythm. And again, this is kind of new for Kemba to be in this situation playoff-wise. So just like a lot of the young guys for the Miami Heat are learning, Kemba's also in that situation.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Playoff Central Live will continue with a look ahead to Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, set to tip off tomorrow night on TNT. LeBron James, the top-seeded Lakers, taking on the comeback kids, the third-seeded Denver Nuggets, who dug out of a 3-1 hole not once,